Before I make some future videos, I want to define how I break down decks into distinct classes of cards. I feel like terms like engines and tech are thrown out, but not always explained in detail. These terms have some overlap, and there is definitely some gray area, so I want to reinforce that this is only how I think about them. Core cards are what define a deck. Due to the archetype nature of modern Yu-Gi-Oh!, core cards are usually members or support for the archetype a deck is built around. Generally, archetypes share a naming convention, but occasionally there are unofficial members, like Fiendish Rhino Warrior in Burning Abyss, or Crystal Rose in both the Gem Knight and Melodious archetypes. We tend to think about decks in terms of the main archetype they feature. Some rogue or otherwise unconventional decks are not defined by a core set of cards, and in some cases, multiple engines or suites can take the place of core cards, resulting in multiple archetypes defining a deck. A good example is with the Artifact and Trap Trick engines, as well as the Ice and Firehand suites. Speaking of which, an engine is a set of related cards which performs a dedicated function in a deck, most often gaining card advantage or tempo in some way. A classic draw engine is composed of Cards of Consonance, Whitestone of Legend, Trade-In, and Blue Eyes White Dragon. You discard Whitestone of Legend to draw with Cards of Consonance, while also searching the Blue Eyes White Dragon, which can then be traded in for another 2 cards. This engine is great for both drawing and deck thinning, and as a result, fits into Exodia decks quite often. Clownblade is a 2-card engine which uses Performage Trick Clown and Heroic Challenger Thousand Blades. Trick Clown can be used to recycle a Performage from the graveyard, itself included, but will also inflict 1000 points of damage to the player. The effect of Heroic Challenger in the graveyard can then be activated to special summon itself from grave. This results in 2 level 4 monsters on the field, which is perfect setup for Xyz monsters in their era, or more likely Link monsters now. Although Trick Clown and Thousand Blades are the essential cards in the engine, other cards may also be included, like Performage Damage Juggler and Reinforcement of the Army to search for the combo pieces, as well as Foolish Burial to initiate the combo. Search cards are not strictly necessary for an engine to perform, but they really help with consistency. To me, a good engine usually is in the deck to advance the game state, which is in contrast to a card suite, which is used to impede the opponent in some way. Card suites are small sets of cards, which may be included in the main deck, but are mostly in the side deck to shore up a potential weakness. Usually suites are sets of cards with similar function, but not necessarily internal synergy. In the side deck, a playset of Ally of Justice Cycle Reader and Light Imprisoning Mirror can be used to shut down light monsters, but that of course is a format-dependent example. Historically, a card suite of triple Reinforcement of the Army, triple Zumbria the Dark, and triple Deck Devastation Virus was played to preemptively deal with weak monsters in aggro decks. More modern examples of card suites include cards like Evenly Matched, Winged Dragon of Ra Sphere Form, and even Swords of Concealing Light as candidates for board-breaking card suites. These are used to best effect when going second in game 2 or 3. To me, playsets of Floodgates are in this category as well. There may be potential overlap between an engine and a card suite, but I think engines are aggressive or advantage-driven, while card suites are dedicated for stun or defense. Sometimes groups of cards like this are called packages, but I am on the fence about that term, using it as a loose descriptor of sets of cards which seem to crop up together, but not necessarily fitting into any of the aforementioned categories. Moving on from groups of related cards, a lot of decks seem to have a good number of cards in common. These are staples. Staples are generally strong generic cards that can be used in a variety of decks. Staples vary from meta to meta, but mass removal, draw power, and special summoning effects are consistently strong. Historic examples are cards like Torrential Tribute, Pot of Avarice, Call of the Haunted, or even Last Will. More contemporary examples are Lightning Storm, Triple Tactics Talent, Pot of Desires, and Emergency Teleport. Although Emergency Teleport is often part of a Psychic engine, or a Psychic suite with cards like Ghost Ogre and Snow Rabbit. Speaking of hand traps, and still in the realm of individual cards, we have tech. Most often, these are hand traps because of their speed and utility. Having the ability to react on the opponent's turn is an essential part of counterplay, but there are also anti-tech tech, like Call from the Grave. I also consider single target removal to be in this category, both spell, trap, and monster removal. This is because not every format has back row, and different removal options have to be employed against different metagames. The next category of cards I consider when building decks are combo initiators and extenders, which are mostly cards which can special summon monsters at a low cost. Historically, Cyber Dragon has been a good combo initiator, able to special summon itself from hand and then be tributed for a monarch, to initiate the perfect circle. Unknown Synchron is a more contemporary example of a combo initiator, which can be used to get to key extra deck monsters like Crystron, Hauki Vibrex. Combo initiators can be used when not all the core combo pieces are drawn and can help to increase consistency in pulling off the main combos for a deck. Combo extenders are similar, but are used after the core combo has already been pulled off, either to gain card advantage, make a stronger board presence, or even put more damage on board for an OTK. The elemental spirit monsters are good for extending combos. They are not great as combo initiators since they require a card engraved to be online, but adding another Synchro XYZ or Link material on board can really help to keep the ball rolling. Most cards which are played in a deck fit into one of these categories, but there is one last designation I want to talk about: filler. Generic cards which have the express purpose of deck thinning or drawing, which are not part of an engine, I consider filler. Upstart Goblin and Jar of Greed fit this description pretty well, but so does Gather Your Mind, when it's only being used to deck thin and not to deposit spell counters. But I think Spell Power Grasp or Toon Table of Contents are to be considered engine pieces, which can fuel cards like Royal Magical Library, or eventually tutor for a more useful card. Keep in mind these categories are a bit arbitrary, but I think they are helpful in terms for communicating the function of sets of cards in a deck. I am planning on expanding the Cards to Consider series to add in some card suites and engines to consider when I think I'm onto something neat. So I wanted to go ahead and clarify a few of the terms ahead of time.